This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. So last couple of sessions or kind of demo sessions, we have seen about the load runner architecture, and we have seen what is the response time, and we've also seen what is performance testing and what are the different types of performance testing. But in today's session, we'll see what is the software architecture, what is the protocol, and what is this performance testing life cycle is all about. Okay, how do we gather the non-functional requirements? Yeah, what are the different criteria that we follow in gathering the non-functional requirements and all? Okay, to begin with, we'll discuss about the importance of software architecture. Let's assume, this is the uh, login page of some bank application. Okay, and if you want to log in, okay, you have to enter the username and password and click on submit button, right? That's what we generally do. And as soon as we click on submit button, we will be navigated to the home page, right? But let's assume that we are definitely getting navigated to home page, but it is taking 1 or 2 minutes. But it is taking 1 or 2 minutes. What was the ideal response time, or the SLA which we discussed as per the industry standard in the previous session? Does any one of you remember?
Up to 2 seconds?
Yeah, up to 2 seconds. So here, what I'm saying is it's taking around 1 or 2 minutes for the login to happen, which is not the ideal response time, right? So which is not the response time as per the SLA. It's taking more time. So here, what does that mean? So when the response time is 1 or 2 minutes, or something more than that, let's assume, or it's 1 minute or 2 minutes. So what does that mean? So it means that there is some issue, right? There is some issue in the back end. Okay, there is some issue in the back end, and that issue we call it as bottleneck. In performance testing terminology, we call it as bottleneck. Okay, so here the reason we are discussing, the time taking for the login to happen is 1 or 2 minutes. The reason could be an issue with the application. Okay, but we don't know where exactly the issue is. Okay, we don't know where exactly the issue is. So in order to identify the bottleneck, we need to understand the architecture of the software application. Okay, simply we cannot say that login is taking this much time. Okay, so you need to as a performance tester, or as a performance engineer, you need to tell them where exactly it's taking time. Okay, what is the call, or what is the method that is taking time? That's what you have to tell to the application team or to the client. Okay, so in order to get that amount of knowledge, so you need to understand the architecture as well. So without knowing the architecture, you cannot say where exactly it is going wrong. Okay, so that is the importance of software architecture. No, so as I said, in this software architecture, uh, the first thing we have to understand, the first thing we have to know is the server, something about server. So we all know, we have been, we hear a lot about this term called server, in bank ATMs, and the Gmail servers, Facebook servers. So we hear a lot about this word or this terminology called server, right? So what exactly this server is? Okay, in general, software a server is a software, which can handle these three things. What are these three? The first thing is, a server should able to understand our request. If we are sending some request to the server, it should be able to understand our request, and then once it understands the request, it should be able to process our request. Okay, and once it processes our request, it should be able to send the response back. Okay, any software which is doing these three activities, we can call it as a server. In fact, we can call it as a server. Okay, so let's assume this is the client. Okay, this is a server. Okay, and this is the request and the response. Okay, this is the client request and this is the client server response. Okay, so any software which is understanding your request and processing your request and sending the response back can be termed as a server. But however, okay, however, a software alone cannot run on its own. A software alone cannot run on its own. It needs the support of the hardware. Okay, so when it needs the support of the hardware, the combination of both is called as server. So the combination of both is called as a server. Okay, so let's assume, for example, if any one of you have asked me the MS Office software. Okay, if any one of you have asked me MS Office software, I have given you in some, you know, some CD or some pen drive. So if I give you that software in a CD or a pen drive, will that be played automatically or will that be used automatically? No, it has to be used along with some hardware, right? We have to use it along with some hardware. Then only the software will work. The MS Office software alone cannot run on its own. We have to integrate. We have to integrate with any of the hardware. Then only it will work, right? In the same way, here the software alone cannot run its own on its own. It needs hardware support. So the combination of both is called as server. Okay. So this is the main important thing we should understand as a performance tester. Any person who is starting their career in performance testing should understand these terminologies. Okay, and we have something called the server architecture. So 2-tier architecture, 3-tier architecture, n-tier architecture, right? So we have been hearing this about these architecture types of architecture as well, right from our college days, and here as well in our performance testing area space. Okay, so we'll see what is this entire architecture, how it looks like, what are the different types of servers that are part of this entire architecture. Okay, so here in this entire architecture, we have a client. Okay, we have a web server, we have an app server. App server is nothing but the application server, and we have database server. Okay, so what happens is generally a request will always start, go from client to web server, and from web server the request will further go to app server, and then it will go to DB server, and in the same way the response will come back. In the same way the response will come back. So any one of you have any idea about what is a web server and what is the app server? Does any one of you know what is meant by app server and what is meant by web server? What do they do generally?
Yeah,
I'm not.
in web server,
Yeah, go ahead.
hello. In web server, front-end development will be done. In app server, code will be run in.
Yeah. So what a web server will? Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
Web server will have the presentation layer. The logic will be in the app server, and the connection will be in the logic layer, and then the actual connection between the logic layer and the web server will be in the MC. The actual connection between the web server and the DB will be in the DB server, where the database resides.
So yeah, so web server mainly what it does is it accepts the request from clients, okay, for all types of static content like HTML pages, images, and everything from a website. Okay, so it mainly deals with that. So and what it handles is the HTTP request, right? Generally, what it handles is the HTTP request between the client and the app server. And what the application server will do is generally it exposes the business logic to the client. Okay, and it also generates the dynamic content. All the backend logic will be resided in the application server. Okay, and all the data, as the name suggests, will be resided in the database server. So the request, whenever the client is sending any request, okay, so the request will flow through these servers. For example, if you are using a Gmail, if you are trying to log in, as soon as you enter the username and password and click on login button, the request will go through these servers. Yeah, because your credentials, where does your credentials reside? They reside in the database server, right? Your credentials are data, right? The user ID and password, those will be saved in the database, right? So and what is the logic that is validating your username and password, that will be resided in the application server, right? So this is the difference. So yeah, and one more thing. So let's assume that the application, there are so many requests are coming up from client, and the application server alone is not able to handle all the requests. Okay, so there are so many requests are coming. Okay, at a time, let's assume so many people are accessing Gmail or something is happening, and then the application server is not able to process all the requests. So what they do generally is two things they'll do here. In those cases, two things is possible. First thing is they will add additional application server. They will add additional application server. Okay, so that is called scale out. Okay, the term they use for adding additional server is called scale out. This is not only applicable for app server, this is applicable for DB server and web server as well. Okay, so if
is the concept of load balancer comes here, where we have more than one server?
Yeah, the load balancer comes into picture here as well, because
Okay.
yeah, so the load balancer, what it does is it sends the request to different application servers equally, so that it will ensure that all the application servers are receiving requests on a equal ratio. Not on, it will ensure that no single server is taking full load. Okay, so all the requests should go equally. So that's what the load balancer will do. So generally, when the application server, if they want, if it is taking too much load, if they want to add one more server, they call it as scale out. You have to remember this term called scale out. Okay, and sometimes what they do is, instead of adding the additional server, they can upgrade the existing server. Like for example, if the application server is having 2 GB of memory, okay, so what they can do is they can upgrade from 2 GB to 4 GB, right? So if the application is running, and when you do a performance test, and if you observe that memory utilization is little bit high, it's crossing a 90%, or it's near to 100%. So what you suggest is, you can what they do is, they can upgrade the existing RAM from 2 GB to 4 GB. That is called scale up. Okay, when we add additional servers, then it is called scale out. When we upgrade the existing server, then it is called scale up. Okay, so this is one important thing which we have to understand. Okay, so scale out and scale up. I'm sure if you are continuing your career in performance testing or engineering, definitely you will hear a lot about the scale up and scale out in your career. Okay, and then we'll continue, and we'll move on to the next concept called protocol. So you might have heard this word called protocol, so many places, not only in in software, but in general also you might have heard this term called protocol, isn't it?
Yeah.
They say that this is a protocol, they have to invite them, that's the protocol. In so many things we discuss, protocol is nothing but in general set of rules. They have to follow some set of rules, right? So that's how it is. So and so here also in software, especially in performance testing, this protocol is very much important. Okay, so let's assume that there is a client and there is a server. Okay, So how will a client and a server interact? But client is sending some request to server, and server has to send some response back to client. Okay, when server receives request from client, it has to understand that request, it has to process that request, and then it should send the response back. So how will the server understand what the client is sending? So they both should have a common mechanism, they both should have a common communication mechanism. Okay, so that, okay, they should follow some rules. Those set of rules is called protocol here again. Okay, so the protocol which we are discussing with respect to performance testing is the communication mechanism between a client and a server. Now, who will decide this? What type of communication mechanism we have to implement between this client and this server? That will be decided by the architect. You know, when the client has some some application to be developed, there will be one architect or the principal engineer who will design or who will say that this is how it should be developed, and then that person is responsible to tell the development team, or or to the client, or to the entire all the stakeholders, that this the client and the server has to follow this communication mechanism. Okay, this set of rules. There are so many protocols actually that are there between when the interaction happens between a client and a server. It depends on what type of data is exchanged between client and server. It depends on what type of data is exchanged between client and server. Okay, if you see here, protocol is nothing but set of rules. Depending on the kind of communication required between client and server, protocol is selected by the architect. Okay, for example, I'll give you a few protocols here: HTTP, HTTPS, FTP, and SMTP. For example, all the web applications, or most of the web applications, they use this HTTP and HTTPS protocol only, isn't it? You generally log into any website and you type HTTP or HTTPS or www.amazon.com. Even though if you don't type HTTP or HTTPS, if you type www.amazon.com, it will automatically take HTTPS or HTTP. That they implement that because the communication happens through that protocol. Okay, and what is FTP? When there is a files exchange between a client and a server, then this protocol is used, file transfer protocol. And the SMTP is simple mail transfer protocol, and this protocol is implemented for all the email exchanges, Okay, so, and there are so many other protocols as well which LoadRunner will support. Okay, so you by slowly you will understand, or you'll come to know what are the different types of protocols. You will come to know. It depends on the project, it depends on the client, it depends on the domain, what domain you are working, which project, who is the client. Based on that, protocol is selected. Okay, but almost most of the applications or web applications use HTTP and HTTPS protocol only. Okay, so this is all about the server architecture and protocol. Okay, yeah, so this is it for architecture. And if you don't have any details, we will move on and we'll discuss about the performance testing lifecycle. Okay, so in any project, we have something called SDLC, STLC. Like, what do you mean by SDLC? Software development lifecycle. It is specifically meant for developers. What do you mean by STLC? Software testing lifecycle. It is specifically meant for testing team, right? In the same way, the performance world also have PTLC, performance testing lifecycle. Okay, or we generally say it's a process usually followed in the performance testing project. Okay, or in fact, you can say in some of the interviews they might ask you something like, what are the roles and responsibilities in your current project? So if you come across these questions like, what are the roles and responsibilities in your project, or the process usually you will follow in performance testing project, or the performance testing life cycle, you have to tell all these points in the interview as well. Okay, so to begin with, what is POC? Proof of concept. Let's assume it's a brand new application, okay, and you have been assigned to do a POC. So what would you do generally as part of POC? Okay, from performance testing perspective, okay, as part of POC, we will try to understand the application architecture. What is the application architecture? We have discussed just now: app servers, web servers, DB servers, what are the different configurations and all. We'll understand the application architecture first, and then what kind of application it is. Okay, what kind of application it is, which technology they use to develop the application, okay, and which communication mechanism they use to develop this application. When I say which communication mechanism, what is the protocol they used, okay, and you will also analyze the complexity of the application, right? So as part of POC, you will do all these things, right? At the same time, we'll also try to identify which tool is compatible for application. So if your client already sticks to one of the tool like LoadRunner or JMeter, then it's fine. But if he is not sure, and if it's a brand new application or if it's a brand new project, and you have been assigned, that into the project, and they have asked you to select the tool as well, then you will try to understand which tool is compatible for this application. If it is a LoadRunner, then you will say which protocol is compatible. Okay, right? And what you generally do is you record some simple business scenarios, execute with minimal users, and then report the response times and other observations to client, right? So based on the POC done by you, client will understand which tool he has to buy, or which tool he has to go with, right? So that is why we do POC. I'm sure if you are if you are an experienced guy in functional or any automation or anything, you might have heard about this POC, and you might have personally done, worked on this POC task. Okay, and then once POC is done, it comes next comes is the NFR. This is the most important thing, and definitely there will be an interview question from this NFR. Whenever you are attending any performance testing interviews, you will definitely get a question from the NFR, non-functional requirement. Okay, so who will prepare the non-functional requirements? Yeah, every performance tester have to prepare non-functional requirement document with the help of business analyst people or the project team people. Okay, so what NFR contains, non-functional requirement document, what it contains exactly? So it contains many things. Okay, it contains many things like critical business transactions. Okay, what are the critical business transactions? What are the peak hours, right? What is the expected response time? That means what is the expected SLA? Okay, how many number of transactions you have to perform per hour? What is the hardware? What are the different what is the different web server and app servers? Okay, and you have to gather the information about the CPU and memory as well. Okay, so we have to gather all this information, and we have to also gather the information like what type of tests we have to perform. Like should we do load test alone, or should we do load test along with endurance test and scalability test? Okay, so we have to get all these details and get it approved by the client or the project team. Okay, in fact all the stakeholders, right? So all these details will go into a non-functional requirements document. As I said earlier, definitely I'll share you a questionnaire which will have all these questions. I'll share you a couple of documents to you guys later. Okay, so yeah, so all whatever the topics or whatever the words I have told you, all this will go into NFR document. Now here comes the most important thing. So if you are what do you generally test as part of load test? Okay, so what do you test as part of load test? We discussed yesterday what is load test, right? So we'll test the application performance under some load. Okay, and the client will give us some number, how many number of iterations we have to perform, and how many number of users. Client will give us how many number of users we have to test. Okay, let's say client is saying 500 users and 1000 iterations he has to perform. Okay, that is the information client has given. Let's assume. Now here, as part of NFR gathering, there will be three scenarios. There will be three scenarios. The first thing is, in fact, I can write it here. In fact, the first thing is, okay, application is already in production. Application is already in production. This is the first scenario or first case. Okay, so who will give us, as I told you, the client will give us the number of users to test. How many number of users we have to test? We have to include in the load test. That number client will give. That is what I told you. Okay, so from where he is giving that? Okay, if the application is already in production, okay, now how we have to get the data is, in fact, how we have to get the data is, we have to get the production log for at least last 6 months to 1 year. In fact, we have to get the historical data of last 6 months or 1 year. Okay, using some tools or like Splunk. I'm not sure if you already know about Splunk. You might get the historical data using some tools, analytical tools like Splunk, or in fact you can use the SQL queries as well. Okay, and you identify in the last 6 months which month and which day there were more number of visitors accessing that application. Okay, and at the same time you should also see how many page views were there, how many people logged in and how many page views were there. Okay, when I say page views, so if you log into bank application, as I said, some people might access credit card page, some people might access the savings account page, some people might access the loans page, right? So you should also see how many page views are happening. Okay, which pages are mostly accessed by users. Okay, so based on the number of visitors, you can identify the number of users. For example, in the last 6 months, this is September, right? In the last 9 months, in the month of April, on 10th of April at 11 a.m., I could see 900 users accessing one application. So that is the max number of users. So that 900 will be counted for load test for us. Okay, that 900 will be counted for load test for us. So based on the number of visitors only, we can identify number of users. Okay, and based on the number of pages, number of page accesses, you will be identifying the number of transactions. Okay, yeah, so this is the first scenario. Because application is already in production, you are getting the production logs for the last 9 months or 1 year. So now second scenario is, okay, second scenario is the client does not know anything and application is not in production. Okay, client doesn't know anything and application is not in production. Okay, so previously application is already in production. Now I am saying that application is not in production. Okay, so what is the solution? How do you get that number? How do you get that number? Because client doesn't know anything. Now who will give us that 900 number? How will they give it? Because application is not in production and the client does not know anything. Okay, so now what we have to do is, as a performance tester or performance engineer, we have to suggest the business team that, okay, use the competitor statistics. Use the competitor statistics. For example, let's assume if Flipkart is not there for time being. Okay, Amazon is there in production, or Amazon is running, super good, and Amazon is famous website in the market for e-commerce. Now let's assume there is no Flipkart as of now. Now we are introducing Flipkart into the market. Okay, now we don't know how many people might access Flipkart. Okay, what is the load that we have to test? Now what we have to do is, we should analyze the market of Amazon. We should analyze the competitor statistics. Who is the competitor for Flipkart? Amazon. So we should suggest the business team and in fact the client to get the competitor statistics and identify the non-functional requirements, like how many number of users they have. Okay, so based on the number of users the competitor is having, so based on that you can go ahead and test it for your application as well. Okay, there are some tools or network utilities like alexa.com, or in some nowadays we are getting Google Analytics. Okay, using this Google Analytics and some sites like alexa.com, okay, we will be able to get the competitor statistics. In fact, Google Analytics is the most preferred one, but it is costly. Okay, it will give you what is the how many number of users are accessing that application or something like the details of it. Okay, so if the client doesn't know anything about about the load, and if the application is not in production, you have to get the competitor statistics, like how many number of users are accessing, how many page views are there, from which location they are accessing the application, right? You can get all this data. Now this is scenario 2. Now third scenario is client doesn't know anything about performance testing at all. First of all, client doesn't know anything about performance testing, and application is not in production, and we don't have any competitor on the market. Okay, right? You can say client doesn't know anything about performance testing, and client doesn't know anything about the application, and then the application is not in production also. And sorry, client does not know anything about competitor. Okay, client does not know anything about competitor, and application is not in production. Now who will give us that number? How to get that number 900, or or the max load, or the number for the load test? Now how to get that? How to get this in this scenario 3? Now what they will do is, because we don't have competitor also. Now in the previous scenario we were assuming that we are Flipkart, and we are trying to get our competitor data from like Amazon. Okay, we are assuming that. Now here we don't have, in this scenario 3, here we don't have the competitor also. It's a brand new application or a brand new thing in the market. We don't have any competitor, we don't have any idea, and the client doesn't know anything about performance testing. Now what is the suggestion as a performance tester we have to give is, or in fact the performance team, from the performance team perspective, what is the information we have to gather, we have to ask business to gather is, how many users might be using the application in real time, the core business. Okay, when I say in the core business, for example, the retail market is there. Okay, then when I say retail market, the retail market will include supermarkets, okay, and the online markets, online supermarkets, direct supermarkets, and everything. Okay, what is the core market number value we have to see? What is the core, how many number of customers are there in the core market? That's what, or core business, that's what you have to see. Okay, let's assume it's 1 million customers. Okay, now out of them, how many are registering for online services? That means how many are going for online purchase? So on a high level, you have to take it for around 10 to 15 or 10 to 20% are going for online business, online purchase. Okay, so out of that, how many are active, or how many might use daily? Okay, and in fact you have to assume that, or you have to analyze what could be the peak business hours during the day. Okay, for example, it's a bank. If it's a bank application, generally when will a bank will open? 10 a.m. right? So what is the peak hours of a bank? Anytime, any day? It could be 10 a.m. It could be from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. right? Any normal, it's a normal analysis, right? If it's a banking application, bank opens at 10 a.m. and the peak hours or peak transactions might go from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. That's how you calculate. If the client doesn't know anything about performance testing, and the client doesn't know anything about competitor, and application is not in production, we have to understand the core business of the application. If it is a banking application, we have to understand the core business, core business, and we have to convert that core business to online business. Okay, so by doing this, we can achieve it. Now we have, in this case, we have to take help of the business analyst. We have to take help of the business analyst. We alone can't get the number, or in fact the business analyst alone can't get this number. Okay, so we have to take the help of business analyst, or in fact other stakeholders, whoever is involved. So now we have to discuss, and then we have to get the number for how many users we have to test. Okay, so this is all about non-functional requirements gathering, how we do it. Okay,
Hey,
and
hey, I have a question here. So this is a real time that is happening in my office. So we already have in production one of the web pages, but it was totally we are consuming a third party vendor who's rendering all the pages for it. Okay. Now we see that since the client base is growing, we want to do it on ourselves rather than waiting for the vendor to handle it. And as you know, since we are trying to end the contract, the vendor might not be able to give all the performance data which we look for. So the number two is ruled out in that case. So how, as a performance tester, I should be able to work? So I should think in number two or number three when we start the work.
your application is already in production, right?
It's in production, but we are not actually having it. It's the third party vendor who's
No,
monitoring things.
even though the third party is handling it,
Mhm.
whenever the contract is ending, and if you are taking over the contract, there should be a proper handshake between the vendor and your company or your organization. What is that proper handshake? uh, all the data, all the in fact all the, if he is owning that application till now, he has to submit all the he has to transfer, he has to transition the entire application to you.
No, no, no. That
So
I understand. You're talking about SLA, which is fine with me. But
not SLA. When I'm saying application, you will be owning that application. That means the all the ownership of that application server, the data will be transferred to you. That's what I'm saying. You aren't you are taking only the application. You're not taking data, right? It doesn't work like that, right? If you are taking the application, it means you will take the everything. For
yeah,
example,
yeah,
I'm owning a school. Okay, I'm running it since 5 years. Now if I'm handing over this school to someone else, so will I not share the student details to the new management? Will I not share the fees details and everything to new management, whatever we have, or else, in fact, the student details, how many students are there, in which class, how many students are there. So I should share, right, to the new management. That's how
hmm
it has to go. If it is a transfer of, ownership of one application from one company to another company, or one party to another party. So simply, it cannot happen like that in real time. That is for sure.
No, I understand
And
that.
moreover, your client should know, right? I know.
No, no, that's the thing. My question was that in that kind of scenario, see, right now we are in negotiating with them. Already there is an agreement and everything is been taken place when we entered into the contract with them for them to do the project for us, right? That's all there. But there are there are certain ways where we won't be able to get the entire data or something like that, the historic data. So in that time, what is the best approach? That's what my question was. It's not about an asking question, it's about what kind of approach we can look for apart from the signing of contract, all those stuff, which is fine. But is there is any other kind of shadowing detail we should ask for, or what kind of approach we should go for? That was my question.
No, it depends on the. That's what I'm saying. It depends on the
It's fine.
agreement between.
I will touch base with you offline. That's
Yeah,
fine.
we'll
Please.
discuss. So, yeah. So after this, important concept. Okay. So and the whatever the concepts which which we discussed just now, those are important and can be part of your interviews for sure. Okay. So next comes the test plan. I'm sure you might have already know this test plan. This test plan is pretty much similar for functional testing and automation, and for in fact for performance testing as well. So the test plan is kind of roadmap for our test, right? So it contains what is the main objective of the test, what is the scope, what are the items out of scope, what is the procedure we are following, what is the approach for test data gathering, right? And what is the architecture, and who is testing it, what are the roles and responsibilities, right? So all these details will go into test plan. Okay, so that we already know it, and you have to work on it. Whenever you get a chance to prepare it, you can work on it. And next is the workload modeling. Actually, we have a good couple of sessions. Maybe tomorrow and not tomorrow. Maybe Monday and Tuesday. We'll be having sessions on workload modeling. Here we will discuss about how to calculate pacing and all. It's a very important concept. In fact, this document, the workload model document, is, we can say it as a heart of all the documents. Okay, which will lead us, uh, to understand how to test the application and what to test that application. Okay, it will help us in understanding how to test that application and what to test that application. It's a very important document. Without this document, you cannot do a performance testing at all. Okay, and this document will contain the critical business transactions and the load distribution, and there are some concepts like pacing and think time calculations, and we will look into those on Monday and Tuesday. Okay, it requires 2 days, complete two sessions for those. Okay, now these four, okay, here these four are document based. And these are practical things like scripting and enhancements. So scripting and enhancement, whatever the critical business transactions are there, that you have to script in using a tool called the Vusion. Okay, which we discussed in our demo session, virtual user generator. So using virtual user generator, we'll do scripting and some enhancements, and after that we'll use some test data. Okay, test data also we can gather. It depends on project, and it depends on what type of test data required. So, and then we have scenario design and execution. So where will we do this? Scenario design and execution? We'll do it in controller or performance center. And after that is the analysis of the results. So where will we analyze the results? In the analysis tool. Using the analysis tool, it provides us various metrics, various graphs. Okay, so it will help us in understanding the test results. Okay, and the last one is the reporting and recommendation. So after analyzing all the results, you have to report the results to the client along with your observations or recommendations. So this is the performance testing life cycle. So the first four are document based, and the remaining one are related to the tool or the components of the load runner architecture. So any doubts with these?